The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the backyard, the California heat beginning to cool as golden light danced on the surface of the pool. A soft breeze rustled the trees, and everything felt still, too still. Then came the splash. It wasn't the usual cheerful splash of Noah jumping into play. This one was sharp, sudden, followed by a strange, frantic thrashing. Inside the house, Noah's mother was drying dishes when she heard it, but Noah was already running outside, barefoot, heart pounding. As he reached the edge of the pool, his eyes widened. There, in the middle of the deep end, something was struggling. Something small, wild, and desperate. For a second, he froze. It wasn't a dog, not a raccoon either. The drenched fur, tufted ears, and wide amber eyes told him all he needed to know. It was a bobcat cub, and it was drowning. Without thinking, Noah leapt into the water. The shock of the cold hit him like a slap, but he kept his focus. The cub was kicking weakly, panicked, too young to swim properly. Noah wrapped his arms around its trembling body and kicked back toward the steps. He could feel its claws, not slashing, just gripping, clinging to him with every ounce of fading strength. By the time he reached the edge, his mother was already screaming his name. Noah, get away from that thing. But he didn't let go. Dripping wet, shivering, and breathless, Noah sat on the concrete with the cub cradled in his lap. The animal wasn't moving much. Just tiny gasps, a wet nose twitching against his chest. He wrapped it gently in the edge of his shirt and rocked slightly, as if instinctively trying to calm it. His father rushed out next, disbelief written across his face. Is that a bobcat? Noah didn't answer. He was staring into the cub's eyes. And for just a moment, it felt like the world had stopped spinning. There was no fear, no wildness, just a quiet connection, fragile but real. I had to save him, Noah whispered. He was going to die. But his parents didn't move closer. They didn't share the awe that Noah felt. All they saw was danger. Noah, put it down, his father ordered, firmly now. That's a wild animal. It could be sick. You need to let it go. But the cub, barely breathing, nuzzled in closer. Noah held on tighter. No, he said quietly. He needs me. His father stepped forward again, now with more urgency. That thing doesn't belong here. But Noah wasn't listening. His heartbeat was still loud in his ears, and all he could feel was a small rise and fall of the cub's ribs. The tiny body that had nearly been lost. The life that was now clinging to him like he was the only safe thing in the world. Something was different. Something about this moment didn't feel like a simple rescue. It felt like fate. A silence fell across the yard. Noah's mother knelt down, still cautious, still unsure. Noah, honey, what are we going to do with him? Noah looked up, eyes steady. I don't know, but I'm not letting him go. In that instant, none of them could have guessed what was coming. They couldn't see how this small act of kindness would spiral into something far more complicated, more emotional, more unforgettable. The cub, now still in Noah's arms, blinked slowly, and the story truly began. Noah's clothes clung to his skin, soaked through from the rescue. He didn't care. All his attention was on the small, silent creature in his lap. The bobcat cub was no larger than a house cat, but its features were unmistakably wild. Rounded ears tipped with black tufts, light brown for a speckle with faint spots, and a tail barely longer than a hand. Its breathing was shallow but steady. For now, his parents stood a few feet away, uncertain. His father paced, one hand on his hip, the other holding his phone, ready to call animal control. His mother looked from Noah to the cub, worry shadowing her face. Noah, she said gently, we need to get you dry. You're freezing. I'm fine, he replied without looking up. They didn't push him. Instead, they quietly brought out a few towels, some water, and a small blanket. Noah laid the bobcat down on the blanket with care, drying it with slow, light dabs. The cub didn't resist. It was too tired, too weak, but it didn't pull away either. It let him help. The backyard, once bright with afternoon sun, was now fading into golden hour. Long beams of orange light filtered through the trees. Birds called from the distance, and the breeze had cooled. The neighborhood was quiet, but inside Noah's world, something had shifted. He could feel it, like this moment was carved out of ordinary time. He named the cub Whiskers, half as a joke, half because it just seemed to fit. Its whiskers twitched each time he touched its side, a tiny response that made Noah smile. His father eventually broke the quiet. "We can't keep it, Noah. It's wild. It's illegal. You did a good thing saving it. But we'll have to call someone." "I know," Noah whispered. But he didn't move, and he didn't agree. They gave him the night. His parents weren't heartless. They knew their son had just saved a life, so they let him make a little bed for Whiskers in a cardboard box in the garage. Noah stayed out there for hours. He sat beside the box, legs crossed, watching over the cub as it slept. He placed a small bowl of water nearby, a few shreds of chicken from dinner. He whispered stories into the quiet air. It was the first time in a long while he'd felt something like this, needed, trusted, important. Noah had always been the quiet kid. He didn't talk much in school. He liked books about animals, shows about wilderness rescues, and afternoons by the pool with a sketch pad. He wasn't the kind of boy who did daring things. But today, he had jumped into a pool to save a wild animal, and it had looked at him not like he was strange, but like he was home. He sat with his back against the garage wall, watching the cub's chest rise and fall. It had curled up tightly, its fur still patchy from being wet, but its tiny paws were twitching, dreaming, maybe. He smiled, eyes heavy, and before he realized it, he dozed off. The next morning came with soft light and birdsong. His mom found him asleep, arms folded, head resting on his knees. She didn't wake him immediately. She just watched for a moment. Her son, the quiet one, the thoughtful one, now sitting guard over something wild and fragile. But reality wasn't far behind. By breakfast, the discussion began. I called the wildlife center. His dad said firmly, "They're sending someone by this afternoon." Noah stared at his cereal. "He's not ready to go." "He's not supposed to be here at all," his father replied. "He belongs in the wild, or with people who know how to care for animals like that." "I can care for him," Noah said, a little louder this time. "He trusts me." His mother placed a hand on his shoulder. "You saved him, sweetheart. That means something. But wild animals aren't meant to stay with people." Noah wanted to argue, but he knew they'd already decided. He went back to the garage. Whiskers was awake now, sitting up shakily in the box. When he saw Noah, his tiny tail flicked and he gave a low, soft sound. Not quite a growl, not quite a purr. Noah sat beside him again. He knew the time was short. Later that day, a van pulled into their driveway. It was marked with a local wildlife logo. A woman in uniform stepped out, holding a clipboard. She smiled politely, but her presence brought a weight that settled heavily over the house. Noah's heart sank. He stood between the open garage door and Whiskers' box, unsure if he should run or cry. The woman approached gently. "Hi there. You must be Noah." He nodded slowly. "I heard you saved a little one yesterday. That was a brave thing to do." Noah said nothing. She knelt beside the box and looked at Whiskers. The cub didn't back away. It stayed close to Noah. The woman noticed. "He really likes you, huh?" Noah looked down. He was alone. I think he was scared." She nodded. "They usually are, but they're strong, too. This one looks like a fighter." Then she stood and said the words Noah had been dreading. "We'll take good care of him, I promise." But Noah couldn't look at her. He just bent down, lifted Whiskers gently, and held him close one more time. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't mean to make it worse." He placed the cub into the carrier. The door closed with a click. And just like that, the driveway was quiet again. But what none of them knew, not yet, was that this goodbye wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The house felt colder without him. Even though it was just a small, wild cub and only a day had passed, the silence that followed Whiskers' departure echoed through every corner. Noah barely spoke at dinner. He pushed his food around his plate and gave short answers when spoken to. His parents tried to move on. They thought Noah would snap out of it after a day or two, but he didn't. Instead, he retreated into himself. His sketch pad sat unused. The TV stayed off, and he avoided the backyard completely. At night, he'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering where Whiskers was now. Were they keeping him in a cage? Was he scared? Did he think Noah had abandoned him? One afternoon, a few days later, Noah rode his bike to the edge of the neighborhood, toward the woods. He didn't have a plan, just an ache in his chest he couldn't explain. The same woods where the bobcat must have come from. He stopped at the edge, staring into the dense trees. What if Whiskers had family out there? Was he separated? Lost? A rustle in the brush made him freeze. He waited, but it was just a squirrel darting across the dry leaves. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that the story wasn't over, that something was missing. Back at home, he decided to do something he hadn't dared since the cub left. He emailed the wildlife center. His message was short. "Hi, my name is Noah. I'm the boy who rescued the bobcat cub last week. Can I visit him just to see how he's doing?" He didn't expect a reply. But the next day, an email popped up in his inbox. "Hi, Noah. Thank you for reaching out. Whiskers, we kept your name for him, is doing well. He's eating, gaining weight, and adjusting fast. However, we can't allow visits due to safety protocols, but we'll keep you updated if anything changes. Thank you again for what you did. You saved his life." Noah read the message 5 times. Then he closed his laptop and sat in silence. He was happy Whiskers was okay, but it felt so distant, like someone had stolen a part of his life and sealed it behind glass. The next few days passed slowly. Noah returned to his normal routine: school, homework, quiet dinners. But he was different, more withdrawn. His mother noticed, but didn't press him. Then one evening, something strange happened. It was nearly dark when his dad pulled into the driveway, coming home from work. He was just stepping out of the car when he paused. Startled, a low, growling sound came from the hedges near the garage. He squinted into the shadows and took a cautious step forward. And then he saw it. 2 glowing eyes, a flash of fur, a familiar shape, low to the ground, staring straight at him. "Noah," he shouted. "Come here. Now." Noah rushed outside, confused. His father pointed toward the hedge. But by the time Noah got there, it was gone. "I swear," his dad said breathlessly. "It was him. That bobcat. I saw it." Noah's heart jumped. "Whiskers?" "I don't know," his father said. "It looked just like him. But how could it be?" They took him to the center. But Noah was already looking past the hedge, scanning the tree line beyond their backyard. His eyes narrowed. What if Whiskers had escaped? The next morning, Noah went to the backyard and placed a bowl of water by the edge of the fence. Not food. He remembered the center's note about keeping wild animals wild. But maybe just something to say, "I'm still here." That night, the bowl was empty. The following evening, he left out a blanket. Nothing fancy, just one of the old ones from the garage. In the morning, it was slightly disturbed. Not shredded, not clawed, just shifted, like something small had curled up there for a few hours. Noah didn't say anything to his parents. He just kept watching. On the 3rd night, it happened. He was sitting quietly in the shadows of the patio when he saw a movement near the edge of the trees. A flicker, then a form. Small, cautious. Whiskers. Noah didn't move. He didn't call out. He just waited. The cub stepped slowly into the yard. Bigger than before. Stronger. But those eyes, the same soft golden eyes, locked on Noah. They stared at each other for a long time. And then, slowly, Whiskers padded closer. Just a few feet away. Then he turned and vanished into the trees again. Noah's chest was tight. His heart pounded. He knew what he saw. He wasn't crazy. Whiskers had come back. But why? And what was he trying to say? The next few nights followed the same quiet rhythm. Noah would sit quietly by the patio, barely breathing, while the moon rose over the trees. And each night, just before midnight, Whiskers would appear, briefly, silently. Sometimes he'd sit at a distance, just watching. Other times, he'd come close enough that Noah could hear the soft pads of his paws on the grass. He never stayed long, just a few minutes, as if checking in. Noah didn't speak. He didn't try to pet him or call him over. He just sat there, showing the cub that he was still here, still safe. But something changed on the fifth night. Whiskers came out from the trees as usual, his form lit dimly by the backyard light. But this time, he didn't stop near the fence. He kept walking, past the blanket, past the bowl, all the way up to the edge of the concrete, where Noah sat. The bobcat sat down, right in front of him. Noah stared. His heart was beating so loudly, he was sure Whiskers could hear it. The cub looked tired. Not physically, but emotionally. His posture was low. His ears flicked with the breeze. And then, something strange happened. Whiskers let out a soft sound, not a growl or a purr, but something in between. A quiet, rumbling cry. Noah leaned forward slightly. "Are you okay?" The cub's eyes met his again. And then, just as suddenly, Whiskers turned and trotted off toward the woods. But this time he didn't disappear. He stopped at the edge, glanced back, and waited. Noah stood slowly. "Are you trying to show me something?" He took a few steps forward. Whiskers didn't move away. Instead, he turned and slipped into the trees. And this time, Noah followed. He moved carefully, the ground soft beneath his shoes. Dry leaves crunched as he stepped over roots and ducked under low branches. Whiskers stayed just ahead, close enough to be seen, far enough not to spook him. The air in the woods was cooler, still holding the last breath of spring. Somewhere nearby, an owl called out, but otherwise it was quiet. After a few minutes, Whiskers stopped. He crouched low near a fallen tree. Noah stopped behind him, squinting into the shadows. And then he saw it. Another cub, smaller than Whiskers, thinner, curled up in a shallow dip in the earth, half hidden beneath broken branches. Noah's breath caught in his throat. It wasn't moving. He crouched down slowly. Whiskers didn't stop him. The second cub stirred slightly, barely. Its eyes fluttered open for a moment, then closed again. It was too weak to move. "Oh, no," Noah whispered. "You brought me here because you needed help." It all made sense now. Whiskers hadn't returned just to see Noah. He had come back for a reason, for help. This wasn't just about their bond. It was about survival. Noah took off his sweatshirt and gently lifted the smaller cub into it, wrapping it carefully. The tiny body was fragile, bones prominent beneath its thin fur, but it was alive. Whiskers stood beside him, eyes focused, ears forward. He didn't growl. He didn't run. Noah turned. "Let's go." They walked back through the woods in silence. Whiskers followed close, pausing every few steps to glance at the bundle in Noah's arms. The second cub didn't stir again. When they reached the backyard, Noah rushed inside and placed the smaller cub on a towel in the garage. He grabbed a flashlight, filled a small bowl with warm water, and brought out a piece of boiled chicken. He wasn't sure what would help, but he remembered how Whiskers had recovered. Whiskers stayed at the threshold of the garage, just watching. Noah whispered, "She's going to be okay. I promise." Then he did something he hadn't done since Whiskers had left the first time. He picked up his dad's phone. He called the wildlife center. But this time, his voice was stronger, steadier. "I found another cub. She's really weak. And Whiskers led me to her." There was silence on the other end for a moment, then a soft reply. "You said, Whiskers? The same cub from last week?" "Yes." "Where is he now?" "He's here. Outside." He brought me to her. The woman on the other end didn't speak for several seconds. "Okay," she finally said. "We'll be there soon. And this time we'd like to talk to you in person." The soft hum of the Wildlife Center's van rolled into the driveway just after dawn. The sky was still pink with morning light, and dew clung to the blades of grass in the yard. Noah stood outside waiting, arms wrapped around himself, sweatshirt zipped all the way up. Inside the garage, the second cub lay bundled in fresh towels. She was still weak, but breathing steadily now. Noah had stayed up all night checking her pulse, spooning tiny bits of water to her mouth and whispering soft encouragements. He had named her Luna. Whiskers was nowhere in sight. As soon as the headlights from the van hit the yard, he had slipped back into the woods. But Noah knew he wasn't far. He was always watching. Two officials stepped out of the van. One was the same woman from before, her face now more curious than official. The other was a man in his 40s, holding a soft-sided animal carrier. Noah led them into the garage. The woman knelt beside the towel nest. "You did it again," she said softly. "And you said Whiskers brought you to her?" Noah nodded. "He didn't come back for me. He came because she needed help. I think they're siblings." The man checked the smaller cub, his movements gentle and efficient. After a minute, he looked up and nodded. "She's underweight but stable. You got to her in time." Noah let out a breath. He didn't know he'd been holding. The woman turned back to him. "Noah, we've seen animals do incredible things, but this is different. Most cubs that get separated don't survive, and those that do don't come back looking for people." Noah looked down. "He came back because he knew I'd help him." She paused. "You're not wrong, but this changes things. A lot." She pulled out her phone and stepped outside to make a call. The man began preparing Luna for transport, wrapping her in a soft blanket and placing her into the carrier. She gave a faint squeak, but didn't resist. When the woman returned, her expression had changed. "Noah," she said carefully, "we decided to do something we don't usually do." His eyebrows lifted slightly. "We're opening a temporary field observation program for these two cubs. Because they're still young and because they clearly see you as part of their safety circle, we're going to allow a monitored rehab at-home plan." Noah blinked. "Wait, what does that mean?" "It means," she said with a small smile, "you'll be helping us care for them. Here, in your yard." His mouth fell open. "We'll build an outdoor enclosure," she continued. "Secure, with cameras and supervision. We'll bring supplies and monitor them. But the care, feeding, interaction, rewilding training, you'll be a big part of that, if your parents agree." At that moment, Noah's father stepped outside. He had overheard everything. For a second, he said nothing. Then he looked at his son. "You want to do this?" Noah nodded, hard. "More than anything." His father looked at the wildlife officer. "And this is safe?" She nodded. "With our guidance, yes. We've done it before, but never with this kind of start. It's rare. These cubs already have a bond with each other, and clearly with him." There was a pause, and then, slowly, his father said, "Then we'll do it." Within a week, the backyard had transformed. At the far edge of the lawn, beside the tree line, a large fence enclosure was built, half shelter, half open space. Logs were placed for climbing, shaded corners for rest, and hidden feeding stations to mimic wild behaviors. Whiskers returned that same evening, when the work was done. He didn't hesitate. As soon as the gate opened, he stepped inside and curled up in the far corner, waiting for his sister. Noah watched as Luna was gently carried in. When she saw Whiskers, she let out a high-pitched chirp and stumbled toward him. The moment they touched noses, something inside Noah swelled. Relief. Gratitude. Something he couldn't name. Over the next few weeks, Noah followed the daily care schedule provided by the Wildlife Center. He woke early to prepare meals. He observed their play, tracked their behavior, and reported everything back. The center's team visited every 3 days. But what amazed them most wasn't just the cubs' progress. It was the way they responded to Noah. They played more when he was nearby, ate more, slept peacefully under his gaze. When he spoke softly to them, their ears flicked toward him like they understood every word. Even Noah's parents started coming out more, his mom sitting on the porch watching, his dad helping build toys and hideouts inside the enclosure. They saw it too. This wasn't just a boy helping wild animals. This was something deeper. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the trees, casting the yard in gold, Noah sat by the edge of the enclosure. Whiskers came to the fence and leaned his head against it. Noah smiled. "You found me again." He reached a hand toward the mesh, not to touch, just to be near. Whiskers blinked slowly, then turned and trotted off to where Luna was batting a pine cone between her paws. And for the first time since that day by the pool, everything felt right again. Summer faded slowly into early fall, and with it, the cubs began to change. Whiskers was taller now, his muscles stronger, his movements more confident. Luna, once frail and timid, had grown into a bold, curious young bobcat. Together, they had transformed the enclosure into a world of their own, climbing, chasing, hiding, and even hunting insects that slipped through the mesh. Noah had kept track of every moment, every meal, every sign of growth. But even as the days passed, he knew something was coming. One afternoon, the Wildlife Center's lead coordinator, the same woman who had once taken Whiskers away, returned to check on them. She watched the cubs from outside the enclosure, arms crossed, eyes thoughtful. "They're ready," she said quietly. "In a few more weeks, we'll move them to the soft release site in the mountains, a protected forest zone with minimal human contact. From there, they'll finish the transition back to the wild." Noah didn't answer at first. He already knew. He'd been preparing himself. "They're strong enough now," she added. "And because of you, they have a real chance." That night, Noah sat alone by the enclosure. The cubs were resting in the far corner, curled together in the leaves. The air was cool, and a light breeze rustled the trees around the yard. His heart was heavy, but not broken. He'd known all along that wild animals didn't stay, that this was never meant to be forever. Still, the bond he shared with them didn't feel temporary. It felt like something permanent, even if it couldn't last in the way he wanted. In the days that followed, he made the most of every moment. He played with them from outside the fence, set up new climbing logs, and scattered scents from the wild to help them practice their instincts. The team from the center helped as well, gradually preparing the cubs for independence. Less feeding from bowls, more hunting practice, less human interaction. Even Whiskers started pulling away, not out of distrust, but in instinct. He would sit farther from the fence now, watching from a distance rather than resting by Noah's side. Luna followed his lead. They were becoming what they were meant to be. The morning of the transfer came with a gentle, orange dawn. The soft-release transport van arrived just after sunrise. Noah stood by the enclosure gate, his backpack slung over one shoulder, holding two of Whiskers' favorite feathers he had collected weeks ago. He didn't cry, but his eyes were red. The handlers moved quietly and carefully. The cubs were calm, as if they understood. When Whiskers stepped into the carrier, he paused. He looked back, just once, and in that glance, everything Noah had felt, the connection, the unspoken trust, the wild bond between them, it was all there, a final goodbye. Noah raised one hand and whispered, "Thank you." The van doors closed, and then they were gone. The yard felt empty again. But this time, it didn't hurt in the same way, because Noah had given them something more than safety. He had given them a second chance. Weeks passed. The Wildlife Center sent updates from time to time. The cubs were adjusting well to the soft release zone. They'd been seen exploring, hunting, even marking territory. They were no longer cubs. They were bobcats now, free. Noah didn't visit the site. He didn't want to disturb them. He didn't want to risk changing their course. But every now and then, especially in the early morning when the mist hung low over the grass, he would walk to the edge of the woods and sit on the old stump and just listen, not for footsteps, not for growls, but for something deeper, the sense that they were still out there, that they remembered, and that, in some way, they were still connected. Sometimes the greatest kind of love isn't the kind that holds on, but the kind that lets go, because real care doesn't mean keeping something close. It means giving the strength to fly, to roam, or to run free through the trees.